we live in a broken world. The world puts no difference between the clean and the unclean, and they are not set apart to our Creator to become as He is. Most people have everything backwards, and there is no regards to what our Creator says is righteous and what He says is evil. There is no regard for His judgments and statutes, because there is no regard for that which He gave them to us to teach us. The people who claim to preach His word have no regard for His word. And same with the people that claim to live by it. They have no regard for it, most of them. Ezekiel 22, we read, Son of man, say to them, you are a land that is not clean, nor rained upon in the day of indignation. Your prophets conspire in your midst like a roaring lion ravening the prey. They have devoured the souls. They have taken wealth and the precious things, and they have made many widows in their midst. He is saying that the preachers have taken in the tithes, and they have removed that which has dignity, and they have caused many to be divorced from our Creator. In verse 26, he goes on to say, your priests have violated my Torah and have profaned the holy. They have put no difference between the holy and the profane. Neither have they showed difference between the unclean and the clean, and they have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned among them. This verse is a pretty complete summary of why our Elohim is sending the coming time of affliction to the earth. He gave us His instructions to teach us His righteousness and to teach us to love as He loves and to become as He is. And we'll use the example of His instruction for us to separate ourselves from others when we are sick to illustrate how far the world is removed from obeying His statutes. He tells us to pronounce ourselves unclean to others when we have a situation where we have body discharges that flow out of our bodies that are not normal, such as diarrhea or even nasal discharges that are a result from being sick. You can find these instructions in Leviticus chapter 15. We are commanded to not even touch a person who is unclean, and if we do, we are told to wash in water and to wash our clothes, and we are to be considered unclean to others until evening. We are commanded to not touch anything that the person who is unclean due to a sickness has set upon or laid upon. And if we do, we are to wash ourselves and wash our clothes, and again, we're to be unclean to others until evening. The same goes if their saliva comes upon us from being sneezed upon or coughed upon. A person who is sick and unclean because of their sickness has a role in helping others to not get their sickness, and we have a role in keeping from getting sick from them so that we do not spread it to others. This is love. And we are told that we are to not only be unclean during the time that we're sick, but we're to remain separated and considered unclean for 7 more additional days after the sickness to make sure that we are no longer sick. We're told this in Leviticus 15:13, and when he that has the issue is cleansed of his issue, then he shall number to himself 7 days for his cleansing, and wash his clothes, and bathe his flesh in running water, and will be clean. Can you imagine the healthy condition of the world that would result from living in such a world that obeyed these statutes? Sickness would not spread in our communities like it does. Instead, the world would be considerate of others and live to protect one another. And by obeying our Elohim's instructions like this one, the inhabitants of the world would be set apart to learn true righteousness, because His instructions cause us to be ever mindful of Him and living to serve and living to love one another. He has other instructions for flowing issues, like when our seed goes out from us, and for menstruating women that are also mentioned in this chapter. These instructions were given to set us apart, and they were designed to teach us spiritual lessons as well. But the world has not sought to hearken to these instructions in order to learn their spiritual intent and their physical intent, like we're mentioning here today with the sickness thing. Instead, most have scoffed at them, and most could care less about others getting sick or learning our Creator's righteousness or learning why He gave us the instructions. Another thing that results from living His clean and unclean instructions is those who seek to obey His instructions must strive to be separated from those in the world who are not living His instructions. I say this because knowing that we become unclean on a physical plane when we touch others who are unclean gives us a desire to not touch them. And how are we to know who is unclean or not if they will not pronounce themselves unclean? Because of this, we have to assume that everyone is unclean besides those we know of who are walking in agreement with our Elohim. You would have to assume that they have sat somewhere where a menstruating woman has sat or where a sick person has sat that day, so you'd have to assume that they are unclean. This means that we cannot touch them or we become unclean until we wash our clothes and wait until evening. In lieu of this, why would we choose to be separated from those we love in our families or to bring back sickness into our homes? This also shows that there is no place in society that is clean for us to set upon. Living these statutes literally gives us a desire to be separated from those who are not obeying our Creator. Understanding them and applying them to our lives is an incredible tool in helping us with the paradigm shift that we all must go through in our minds and in our hearts. They help circumcise our hearts because our lives become focused on serving one another and focused on a way of life that comes from our Elohim. Our lives start revolving around His instructions, therefore He becomes our focus, and we learn to desire to be found in His favor as a way of life. If we are obeying Him, then our entire life revolves around His statutes and ordinances, and this results in a beautiful way of life where we are living to be set apart to Him. Certainly contrary to how the world is. Shows how unclean the world is. This sets us up to always be fed and instructed by Him and to always be turning to Him for the answers as we walk with Him. And obeying Him certainly separates us apart from the influences of the world that is led by Satan as we hearken to these instructions. Over the past few years, I have grown in understanding the paradigm shift, and each day gets more incredible as I learn and grow and more understanding is given. I found that actually applying these principles to our lives is what makes the understanding increase in great magnitude. It's not just trying to learn from them, we have to apply them. During this time, as I've grown, I've often asked others the question, how many servants would you have if everyone in the whole world was your servant? The answer is simple. Everyone in the world would be your servant. There is a catch, though, but it is a very good catch. The catch is, in order for this to be the case, we ourselves have to be everyone in the world's servant as well. Otherwise, it would not work, because the leech would teach others to become leeches, and the leeches would flourish. This is why the leeches must be purged out. They suck the blood out of true love. And of course, looking at society, the leeches have flourished. Evil has prevailed. And what's good and right in our Creator's sight has been squashed out. And only few have hearkened to His instructions because the evil has prevailed. Shows the reason that it needs to be purged out. People ask me what the millennium is going to be like. The best way that I can think to describe it is this paradigm shift will be taught to the inhabitants of the world, and it will be lived by them, or they will be purged out. This is how it was supposed to be with us, but it did not happen because man rejected our Elohim's righteousness, and they rejected His instructions to purge out evil, and they embraced the righteousness of men. I want to go back to the verse I started with today that summarizes why our Elohim is sending His wrath to the world. I'm going to read it again here in Ezekiel 22:25. Your priests have violated my Torah and have profaned the holy. They have put no difference between the holy and the profane, neither have they showed difference between the unclean and the clean, and they have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned among them. Not only have the priests done this, most of you have followed their instructions, so you have done this as well by following these wolves. Yahweh Elohim sent His Son to us nearly 2,000 years ago to show us the way to return to His Father, to become His children, how to enter into the renewed covenant. But most of you have rejected nearly everything that He said, and so you have trampled His shed blood under your feet. He said that He is the path to His Father's kingdom, and He became His Father's word in His flesh. He lived His word in spirit and in truth. Following Him means following the same path that He walked on. He told us that His Father's word is the truth that will save us. He said that whosoever does not believe into His name will be condemned, and He told us that the name that He gave to him is his word. His Father gave to him is his word. This is not complicated, but it has been rejected because of your rebellious hearts. All of the prophets that Yeshua bore witness to spoke that we must not depart from the Torah. And they recorded that if we did, that Yahweh said that we would be shut off from him. They recorded the reason why he would send his wrath in verses like this one here in Ezekiel 22. Yeshua said plainly that all will be judged by his Father's word in the last days. It's a matter of just believing him. What word do you think he was talking about? He said plainly that we must live by his Father's word, and he told us that we must obey him if we're going to be taught by him. He said that we must keep the commandments in order to have his Father give us his Spirit to guide us. He said that not one punctuation mark would depart from his Father's Torah until heaven and earth pass away. This means that the Torah with the statutes and judgments would be in place until there is a new heaven and a new earth. This is because his word with his Torah was given to us to separate us from the world and to teach us his righteousness. It is perfect at circumcising our hearts. Some things were hidden and only made available to those who hearkened to the instructions, but the commands to guard and to hedge about the Torah were not hidden. But these instructions were rejected by most of you because you did not want to lose your life for his kingdom's sake. You did not want our Elohim's righteousness, so he sent you into captivity to live out your 70 years in captivity to Satan's lies, and this will be a witness against you in the resurrection. He will use this to increase his family in the great white throne when those who chose to reject his word are resurrected to see the shame of their nakedness. But now he has sent me to cry out to you to return to him and to become part of the seed for the latter harvest. He is going to deliver a people into the millennium because he said so, and this can include you if you will turn from your rebellion to his word. Most of you chose to follow the abomination of desolation, Saul of Tarsus, because you did not want to hearken to the voice of our Creator. Saul gave you a way out of obeying him, as you thought. Let me ask you a question. Who is right? Is Saul of Tarsus and his followers Luke and Mark right? Or are the prophets Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Daniel, Zechariah, Malachi, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Haggai, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, and Zephaniah, are they the ones that are right? Two totally different words, two totally different sets of instructions. Which is right? Who is right? Saul of Tarsus and his followers, like your pastors that you go, and your preachers that you go listen to tickle your ears on Saturday morning or Sunday morning? What, all the false ministries that are on the internet and such? Are they that follow Saul's teachings and saved by grace and all this stuff? Are they right? Or is it Moses and Joshua and King David and Elijah and the other great servants of the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel who testified to his Torah that are right? Who is right? Is it Saul, who said that the statutes were nailed to the stake that most of you call the cross, and said that the Torah was a curse? Was he the one that was right? Or was it Yeshua, our Messiah, who was right, who said that not one punctuation mark will depart from his Father's Torah until there is a new heaven and a new earth? Who are you standing with? Life and death swings in the balances. What is it going to be? Those of you who choose to continue in your rebellion to our Elohim's word will be purged out in the coming weeks and months. The day and the year of his vengeance has been proclaimed, just as Yeshua and Isaiah prophesied that it would be. It was prophesied that I would be sent to you with this proclamation. But even if I wasn't this man, why do you choose to rebel against your Maker anyway? Why is it that you will not hearken to his voice, yet you have no problem hearkening to Satan's voice and Satan's servants' voices? Why is it that you do not want to purge out evil from your midst? Why is it that you do not want to be taught what is evil according to our Elohim? Why is it that you scoff at his instructions? I gave the example today of how exposing ourselves to others when we are sick is evil. Hidden in this example, it is even wrong to expose ourselves to others who are sick or could be sick, because we could return the sickness to our families. This is our Elohim's righteousness. Do you want his righteousness? You're going to have to start wanting it. If you do not, he is getting ready to purge you from before his face. One last question for you today. Why did the prophets speak that the reason why our Elohim is going to send his wrath to the scattered nations of Israel in the last days is because of rebellion to his word and rebellion to his Torah, if this were not true? This is a fair question, because Yeshua told Pilate that the reason why he was sent into the world was to bear witness to the truth. And he said that the truth is his Father's word. This means that the writings of these prophets are true. Plus, if you would just think about it, if you think that the writings of the prophets are not true, or that they do not apply, then you just got rid of our Messiah, because it is these writings that testified to him. And he testified to their writings in reverse by fulfilling so many of them. So you see, you have certainly got yourself backed into a corner if you would just think about it. The fact that you say that you believe these writings, yet you do not hearken to what they say, shows that you are divided between two opinions, and this shows that you're full of hypocrisy. If you want to continue to follow the make-believe images of our Creator that you got from the writings of Saul of Tarsus and from other false shepherds who were dressed in sheep's clothing, this is fine. Go ahead and do so and die, because you have no place in my Father's family anyway. But if you want to live, then repent and turn to the righteous Creator of all things and call upon his name and live. His name is his righteousness. Turn to the righteousness of the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will deliver you, and he will wash you in his Son's blood. The Messiah of Christianity is a make-believe Messiah that was made up in the hearts and minds of a rebellious house who did not want to hearken to their Creator. A make-believe Messiah has make-believe blood, and make-believe blood is not going to wash any of you clean. The true Messiah is his Father's word, and he bears his Father's word as his name. He will return with his Father's word coming out of his mouth like a sword to judge all with it. Isaiah said in 5:16, Yahweh of hosts will be exalted in judgment. Elohim, who is holy, will sanctify righteousness. All will be judged by his word, and his word testifies to his righteousness. He will set those apart who will choose to be set apart to him to become his righteousness through living his word. The unclean world is about ready to be made clean by getting rid of that which puts no difference between the clean and the unclean. And all that puts no difference between the holy and the profane will be purged out.